Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminithi Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisheshai Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarini Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narancheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayamudhirayat Nashtaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So it's always good to recite this prayer before we start reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. So this is also one of the shlokas in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, the one which I recited, right? So today, last class, we saw Arjuna's prayers are over, right? And yeah, so this, so what all we covered, sorry, say Arjuna's prayers today is, yeah, Vyasadev's prayers are done and then Arjuna's prayers are done. So today it will be Kunti Maharani's prayers, yeah? Chapter 8. So I'll just again give some backdrop, okay? So where these things have, again, this episode comes in, okay? So this is again in first chapter, first canto, 8th chapter, okay? So wherein now the war is finished, right? And then, so Lord Krishna is about to leave the Kurukshetra battle and then he is about to go to Dwaraka, right? So as battle is finished, so is uh, the Pandavas and all, right? So whosoever, oh, there is a power cut. I don't know how much time we can survive, but let's see. So this is the time, so wherein the Pandavas went to the river and then so they were actually doing some rituals for the ones who have left their bodies, right? So and so the chariot is getting ready, yeah, and Lord Krishna is about to board the chariot, and then the and then he saves Uttara comes in, and then he saves Parikshit Maharaj from the radiation of Brahmastra. Yeah, so, and then he's about to leave. Then Kunti Maharani actually, so she couldn't resist, and then she starts praying. Actually, so we'll see from where. Yeah. So this is the first prayer onwards. Yeah? So from there, she actually uh, first glorifies, and then so whatever she has the feelings for the Lord, right? She actually starts. Okay. So this is the first shloka, so wherein Kunti Maharani actually expresses her heart. Okay. And this is very unique, though, right? So because a lot of people, right? Say like the sages and all also cannot glorify the way Kunti Maharani has done in. Okay, she touches his name, form, qualities, yeah, and then she gives a little bit of pastimes, and then why the Lord appears. Yeah, so actually there are a lot many prayers which she gives in. Okay, so this is the first one to start with. Yeah. So Kunti Vacha Namasye Purusham Tvadhyayam Ishwaram Prakrite Param Alaksham sarvabhutanam antarbahir avasthitam. So synonyms. Yeah? Kunti Vaja. Srimati Kunti said, Namasye. Let me bow down Purusham, the supreme person, Tva, you, Adyam, the original, Ishwaram, the controller, Prakriti of the material cosmos, Param beyond Alakshyam, the invisible, Sarva, all, Bhutanam, of living beings, Anta, within, Bahi, without, Avesthitam, existing. So translation, Srimati Kunti said, "O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality, yeah, and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all." Yeah. This is what she prays in. These are beautiful prayers. If at all we can um, remember this, this is nothing like that because we can't offer these kind of prayers, right? So we'll have to take the help of the exalted devotees, right? So who have led this path to us, right? So we'll have to follow their footsteps, right? And then it's easy in that way. So we can pray to the Lord, yeah. So Milina Mataji, would you like to go ahead with this purport?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Shrimati Kunti Devi was quite aware that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, although he was playing the part of her nephew. Such an enlightened lady could not commit a mistake by offering obeisances unto her nephew. Therefore, she addressed him as the original Purusha beyond the material cosmos. Although all living entities are also transcendental, they are neither original nor infallible. The living entities are apt to fall down under the clutches of material nature, but the Lord is never like that. In the Vedas, therefore, he is described as the chief among all living entities. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Then again, he is addressed as Ishvara or the controller. The living entities or the demigods like Chandra and Surya are also to some extent Ishvara. But none of them is the supreme Ishvara or the ultimate controller. He is the Parmeshwara or the super soul. He is both within and without. Although he was present before Srimati Kunti as her nephew, he was also within her and everyone else. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.15, the Lord says, I am situated in everyone's heart, and only due to me one remembers, forgets, and is cognizant, etc. Through all the Vedas, I am to be known because I am the compiler of the Vedas and I am the teacher of the Vedanta. Queen Kunti affirms that the Lord, although both within and without all living beings, is still invisible. The Lord is, so to speak, a puzzle for the common man. Queen Kunti experienced personally that Lord Krishna was present before her, yet he entered within the womb of Uttara to save her embryo from the attack of Ashwathama's Brahmastra. Kunti herself was puzzled about whether Shri Krishna is all pervasive or localized. In fact, he is both, but he reserves the right of not being exposed to persons who are not surrendered souls. This checking curtain is called the Maya energy of Supreme Lord, and it controls a limited version of the rebellious soul. It is explained as follows. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So this is the prayer which actually Kunti Maharani prays. Yeah, first she is actually praying. She is doing the obeisances to the Supreme Lord, yeah, Krishna. Though he is the nephew, right? If you look in it, so Kunti Maharani is elder to Lord Krishna, right? But she knows that the nephew whom she is seeing is none other than the Lord, yeah. So that's the reason she is paying the respect, yeah. And then she is actually throwing so many things, right? So she says that you are the Ishwaram, right? So though there are a lot of Ishwaras, right? So like the smaller Ishwaras, right? Say like the gods and all, right? So, like Indra, Chandra, they are all the Ishwaras, right? Even we ourselves are Ishwaras, but to the local body, right? So our remit is limited to our own body, right? But the Lord is Parameshwara, right? So he is as he's residing in all of us as Paramatma, right? And then the other aspect is the Lord is simultaneously near us and far also, right? So that's the beauty of the Lord. So he is within us. Okay. So we need not search, right? So it's like searching the jewel which is in your neck itself, right? So you're searching for something which is in your neck itself, but outside you're searching for an jewel. Yeah. So similarly, the Lord is residing in our heart itself as a Paramatma, right? And then he is in the abode in his dham, right? Goloka dham, he is there. Yeah. So that's the thing which is being told. Yeah. And then he is the controller of everything. Yeah. And the other aspect, right, in here, even Kunti Maharani feels the same, right? Because she says that you actually are present before her, right? So she is looking at Krishna, but at the same time, he went and then he saved Parikshit Maharaj in the womb of Uttara, right? So that's what she shares that so you are present everywhere, and then it's very difficult to understand you, right? And then you are Adyam, so you are the one. So who is the oldest? Yeah. So in that way, she is actually praying. Yeah. And then here, right? So it's he is Parmeshwara or the super soul. He is both within and without. And then here he shares that he is present everywhere. Right? That's what it's been said in 15.15, right? So this is what Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannavishta. Yeah? So we all know, right? The slokas this is in 15.15. Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannavishta Matasmritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha, right? So he is the one who is residing in everybody's heart, and then he is the one who gives us the remembrance, and then the knowledge, right? Forgetfulness, everything he only gives in, right? And after reading all the Vedas, right, so you'll get to know that he is the supreme, yeah, because he only compiled Vedas, right, and Vedanta Sutra. So even that also he mentions in 15.15, right? So Vedesha cha sarvaraham eva vedyo Vedanta krit Vedavid eva chaham. Yeah? So that's what it's been mentioned here. Yeah? So yeah, so this is the same thing which we spoke about. Yeah, and then all of us, right? Either we are covered with Maya. So why we are not able to see the Lord, right? Due to Maya. So one is Mahamaya or Yoga Maya, right? So there are curtains. So even that would be discussed in the next verses. Yeah. So we'll go to the next verse. Yeah. So here, this is 8.1.8.919. Yeah. Maya Javanika Chanam Agna Adoksha Agnyadokshajam Avyayam Nalakshasya Mudadrisha Nato Natyadharo Yatha. Yeah. So Maya deluding, Javanika curtain, yeah. Achannam covered by Agnya ignorant, Adokshajam beyond the range of material conception, transcendental, Avyayam irreproachable, yeah. Not Lakshaya observed, Mudadrisha by the foolish, so this is Mudha, sorry, Mudha Drisha, by the foolish observer, Nata, Nata, artist, Nat, Natyadhara, dressed as a player's Yatha, as, yeah. So, being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player into is not recognized. Yeah. So here, so with the this is nothing but Maya, right? We are covered with the curtains. So the Maya curtains are there. So and then so we are thinking, we're looking at the Maya, right? So we are thinking that that's all the life, right? So we are not able to go beyond the Maya, right? So only the liberated souls, right? They can understand so that this is a curtain, and then beyond that there are lot of things. Yeah. So the whole spiritual world can be visible if that curtain is removed. Yeah. So to remove that curtain, we need Lord's mercy. Yeah. It will not happen because the same thing if you look in at the battlefield also, right? So at the Kaurava side, none of them could actually accept Bhishma and Drona, right? And few of the Maharathis. Others couldn't recognize the presence of the Lord, right? So that's the thing. Yeah. Oh, who can read this? Praveen Prabhu, you want to read this? Perfect.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna affirms that less intelligent persons mistake him to be an ordinary man like us, and thus they deride him. The same is confirmed herein by Queen Kunti. The less intelligent persons are those who rebel against the authority of the Lord. Such persons are known as asuras. The asuras cannot recognize the Lord's authority when the Lord himself appears amongst us as Rama, Narsimha, Varaha, or in his original form as Krishna. He performs many wonderful acts which are humanly impossible. As we shall find in the 10th canto of this great literature, Lord Sri Krishna exhibited his humanly impossible activities even from the days of his lying on the lap of his mother. He killed the Putna witch, although she smeared her breast with poison just to kill the Lord. The Lord sucked her breast like a natural baby and he sucked out her very life also. Similarly, he lifted the Govardhan hill just as a boy picks up a frog's umbrella and stood several days continuously just to give protection to the residents of Vrindavan. These are some of the superhuman activities of the Lord described in the authoritative Vedic literatures like the Puranas, Itihasas, histories, and Upanishads. He has delivered wonderful instructions in the shape of Bhagavad Gita. He has shown marvelous capacities as a hero, as a householder, as a teacher, and as a renouncer. He is accepted as the supreme personality of Godhead by such authoritative persons as Vyasa,
Yes. Yeah.
Devala, Asita, Narada, Madhva, Shankara, Ramanuja, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanatha Chakravarti, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and all other authorities of the line. He himself has declared as much in many places of the authentic literatures, and yet there is a class of men with demonic mentality who are always reluctant to accept the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. This is partially due to their poor fund of knowledge and partially due to their stubborn obstinacy, which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. Such persons could not recognize Lord Sri Krishna even when he was present before them. Another difficulty is that those who depend more on their imperfect senses cannot realize him as the Supreme Lord. Such persons are like the modern scientists. They want to know everything by the experimental knowledge, but it's not possible to know the Supreme Person by imperfect experimental knowledge. They described herein as adokshaja or beyond the range of experimental knowledge. All our senses are imperfect. We claim to observe everything and anything, but we must admit that we can observe things under certain material conditions only, which are also beyond our control. The Lord is beyond the observation of sense perception. Queen Kunti accepts this deficiency of the conditioned soul, especially of the woman class, who are less intelligent. For less intelligent men, there must be such things as temples, mosques, or churches so that they may begin to recognize the authority of the Lord and hear about Him from authorities in such holy places. For less intelligent men, the beginning of spiritual life is essential, and only foolish men decry the establishment of such places of worship, which are required to raise the standard of spiritual attributes for the mass of people. For less intelligent persons, bowing down before the authority of the Lord, as generally done in temples, mosques, or churches, is as beneficial as it is for the advanced devotees to meditate uh, upon Him by active service. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. It was a long purport, but thank you.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
So this is the Javanika, right? So the curtain, right? So here Kunti Maharani is talking about the curtain, right? The Mahamaya curtain. So we are, all of us are in Mahamaya curtain, yeah. So we are dancing with the Mahamaya curtain, and then say whatever is displayed in the Mahamaya, the illusion, right? So we think that that is the absolute, yeah. So but that's not the thing. There are, so we'll have to open up, we'll have to rise in our devotional service, and then so we'll have to go beyond the Mahamaya curtain. Yeah. And the problem is in the society, right? There are different kinds of people, right? In Bhagavad Gita also we have read, right? So there are mudhas and then dushkritinas, right? So who never believe in the Lord, right? So even if the Lord appears among us, right? So they'll not uh, recognize, or they'll not do anything, right? So on the other side there are pious people, right? So who are in Sattva and all, right? So and then there are few liberated souls who take the advantage, right? So and the other thing is, even though, right, so we have got so the Lord's glories, right, and the pastimes, there are so many, right? So we know that in his as a baby, right, he killed the Putana, right? So who was who came actually to feed him poison, but in turn she was killed, and right. So similarly, at his small age of 6 or 7 years, right, he lifted Govardhan, right. So all these things, and then he killed Kalya. There are so many things which he did, so which are inconceivable, right. So we cannot even lift, we cannot stand for 7 days, live about lifting things, right. So even if we give this challenge for anyone, right, so you don't do anything, you only stand for 7 days, right. So that is also not possible. Yeah. So that's the thing, right. So the Lord is inconceivable, right. He has done so many activities which a normal person cannot do, right. And then all these things are from the, these evidences are from our Vedic literatures, yeah. So here again, right, so there are different types of pramanas also, right. So there are pratyaksha pramanas, right. So we'll have to go with the shabda pramana, right. So which is nothing but hearing from the right source, yeah. So which is nothing but from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, right. So as Prabhupada has given us these things, and then he has not adulterated anything. All these things are as it is, yeah. So there is no tweaking of anything, right? And then the Lord has shown us also, right. So either by his way, or so when he descends, right, he actually does all the things, right. So all the householder activities, right. So and then he shows us the path, right. So as a leader, right, he shows that so he is also, he also abides by the rules and regulation, right. So when Sudama Brahmana went to see him, right, so he offered his seat, right? And then he washed his feet. He did all the things, right? So he was a god, right? So, but when he comes onto the when he incarnates, right, he does everything, right? So just to lay the road for us, right? So, but still, there will be few of the demonics who will never agree, right? For all these things, yeah. And then, so Queen Kunti says that this is nothing but the deficiency, right, of conditioned souls, right? So, conditioned soul is nothing but there are conditions, right? So we are not liberated, right? So it's like in an hospital, there are conditions, right? So we are also living here in some conditions, yeah? Unless we get cured, right? So we'll not be able to see the Lord, yeah. And then in the coming verses also, right, it will be said, right, how we can see. So this is about the form, right, and then how we can see the form, right. So as we are actually as human beings, right, so being in this material world, so we cannot correlate anything with voidism, right. So we need some personal form. So that's the reason the Lord appears as in the form of Archa Vigrahas, right? So wherein we actually bathe them, right? So we actually decorate them, we feed them, and then the offerings are done, right? And we do seva, and then or we take the remnants, right, as prasad, right? So all these things happen. So tatha paramahamsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanartham katham pashyame hi sriyah. So tatha, besides that, Paramahamsanam, of the advanced transcendentalists, Muninam, of the great philosophers, of mental speculators, Amala Atmanam, those whose minds are competent to discern between spirit and matter. Yeah? Bhakti Yoga, the science of devotional service, Vidhanartham, for executing, Katham, how, Pashyame, can observe, he, certainly, Striya, woman. You yourself listen to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service onto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we, women, know you perfectly? So, in this purport, right? See, Kunti Maharani is actually taking our role. Yeah? So, though she is praying as Triya, but it is in general for everyone, right? So, all of us are like that only. Yeah? So, it's not that only woman. So, basically, all of us fall in this category. Say, we are not perfect and then we can't see in, right? So, herein it says that the Paramahamsas, right? So, for them, the advanced transcendentalists, Hamsa is what? So, if we uh, keep a bowl of milk and water, right? So in the same mixture of milk and water, so it will suck milk and then it will live water, right? So those who know the difference between the spirit and matter, right? So the advanced transcendentalist itself are bewildered, right? So they only don't know about the Lord, right? Unless He shows the path, then she says that how can people say like the others, right? The ignorant will they can know you, right? So how can they know you? So how can we discriminate? Is what she is telling here. But she puts herself in general. So like Arjuna, right? So even Arjuna was an exalted devotee, right? So but he was putting all those questions to Lord Krishna so that we'll get Bhagavad Gita, right? So similar way here, right? She is Kunti Maharani is very exalted, but she is actually bringing herself down to the general masses, and then she is offering these prayers. Yeah? Kailash Mataji, Hare Krishna. Can you read this? purport, Mataji?
Yes,
Mataji.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Even the greatest philosophical speculators cannot have access to the region of the Lord. It is said in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, is beyond the range of the thinking power of the greatest philosopher. He is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. The very fact is corroborated by the quill, who is playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord, and thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and in every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested than the men. The simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So here, so as I said, right, so Kunti Maharani is actually telling that I'm an hopeless woman, right? So, so like the Paramhamsas, and then there is a word called Amalatmanam also is used. So for them, right? So the Paramhamsas, right? So who worship, right? With so who are like Nitya Siddhas, right? So, and then so who they are only ignorant, right? So they, at times they are not able to identify, and then she mentions that how can I do that, right? So how can I be on par with them, right? And then she says that how can I see you? So you are the object of bhakti yoga, right? So for the Paramhamsas and all, right? So you are only visible to them. So how can I see it? But the Lord here says that, so he says here, if you look, right, Prabhupada has written that she is taking a part of innocent woman, right? And then the other beauty is, so women are actually easily attracted towards the Lord, yeah. So there is a special favor which the Lord gives to them. Yeah. So if you see in right, so even in any of the say in any of the meetings, or so if there are any devotional activities, or if there is any gathering, right, or if there is any congregation, right, you will be seeing that at least 60 or 70% would be women, yeah, compared to men, yeah, because they get the special mercy of the Lord, right? So it's not only in India, but in any country, any sect, any religion you see, right? The participation of women in religious functions would be more. Yeah. So even though it's mentioned here, so it's not like that. Yeah. So the other, we'll go to the next sloka. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So here she is actually talking about Lord Krishna, right? So she is mentioning who is Krishna, right? So she is giving all the address and everything now. Krishnaya, the Supreme Lord, who is so whomsoever she was talking about, right? So now she is giving more details about Krishna. Krishnaya, the Supreme Lord, Vasudevaya, onto the son of Vasudeva. Devaki Nandanaya, onto the son of Devaki, Cha, and Nandagopa, Nanda and the cowherdman, Kumaraya, onto their son, Govindaya, onto the personality of Godhead who enlivens the cows and senses. Govinda means, the meaning of Govinda is the personality of Godhead who enlivens, so who gives pleasure basically to the cows and the senses, right? Namaha, respectful obeisances, Namaha. Namo Namaha, so it is Namaha and Namaha, obeisances. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord who has come, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other cowherdman of Vrindavan, and the enlever of the cows and the census. So she is actually confirming here once again that she is offering obeisances to Krishna. Who is he? He is nothing but he is the son of Vasudeva, right? Krishnaya Vasudeva, right? So he is the son of Vasudeva and is called as Vasudeva, right? And then Devaki Nandanaya onto the son of Devaki, and then he is the son of Devaki. So here she is talking about the parents of Lord Krishna. There is nothing but Vasudeva and Devaki and Nandagopa Kumaraya. So, and his foster father, Nandagopa Kumaraya, onto the heir son Govindaya Namo Nama, right? And then this is also usually sung, right? So the one shloka which I'm singing before starting the class, right? So even you can attach this also, right? So if you want, we can extend this also, because we are remembering the Lord, right? So we can start with Narayana Namaskrityam and then we can add the son also, Krishnaya Vasudeva Devaki Nandanaya cha. Okay. So let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord. Okay, I have read this, I think, right? Sorry, Hare Krishna. Lakshmi Prabhu, can you read this?
Hare Krishna, I'll read. The Lord being thus unapproachable by any material assets, out of unbounded and costless mercy, descends to the earth as he is in order to show his special mercy upon his unalloyed duties and to diminish the upsurges of the demonic persons. Queen Kunti especially adores the incarnation or descent of Lord Krishna above all the other incarnations, because in the particular incarnations he is more approachable. In the Rama incarnation, he remained a king's son from his very childhood, but in the incarnation of Krishna, although he was the son of the king, he at once left the shelter of his real father and mother, King Vasudeva and Queen Devaki, just after his appearance, and went to the lap of Yashodamai to play the part of an ordinary cowherd boy in the blessed Brajabhumi, which is very sanctified because of his childhood pastimes. Therefore, Lord Krishna is more merciful than Lord Rama. He was undoubtedly the very kind. So Kunti's the brother Vasudeva and the family. Had he not become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, Queen Kunti could not claim him to be her nephew and thus addresses Krishna in parental affection. But Nanda and Yashoda are more fortunate because they could relish the Lord's childhood pastimes, which are more attractive than all other pastimes. There is no parallel to his childhood pastimes as exhibited at Brajabhumi, which are replicas of his eternal affairs in the original Krishna Loka, describes as the Chintamani Dama in the Brahma Samhita. Lord Sri Krishna descends himself at Brajabhumi with all his transcendental entourage and paraphernalia. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore confirmed that no one is as fortunate as residents of Brajabhumi, and especially the cowherd girls who dedicated their everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. His pastimes with Nanda and Yashoda, and his pastimes with the cowherd men, and especially with the cowherd boys and the cows, have caused him to be known as Govinda. Lord Krishna as Govinda is more inclined to the Brahmanas and the cows, indicating thereby that the human prosperity depends more on these two items, namely Brahmanical culture and cow protection. Lord Krishna is never satisfied where these are lacking. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So this is very important. Yeah. So how can we tell that a society is growing, or so the society is maintained well, right? So if the brahmanas and the cows are maintained well, right, in a society, right, then you can say that that society is good. Yeah. So that's something which Prabhupada has mentioned, right? So always, so even in the past yugas also, right? So if you see in, right, so all the times, and the other thing is, even so the cows are the same, but the brahmanas have lost the texture, right? So because of this Kali Yuga thing, right? So yeah, earlier so brahmanas were very respected, right? And then so they were not demanding for anything, right? So they were even though so they were never working for anyone, right? So they were only living on the arms of on the kings and all, right? So they were very satisfied with the small houses, right? So even though they used to instruct the kings, but yeah, so that was the culture which we had in. But in here, right, it's more described about the Lord, yeah. So it is the Lord, right? Here it's been said that Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha, right? So this is how the Shastra gives the pramana, right? So it's not that any other person, right? So there might be a person who is called as Krishna, right? And then his father and mother may name also could be Vasudeva or Devaki, right? But none of them will have a foster father as Nanda Maharaj, right? So people try to make so many stories, right? So, but if you look at in the Shastra, right, every incarnation of the Lord, we have got all the details, yeah. So who is their father, who is their mother, right? Who is their foster father? Everything is written, right? And then here, right? So in this incarnation of Lord Krishna, right? There were a lot of pastimes which he did in, right? So from his birth, right? So he has done so many pastimes, and then he gave chance to so many devotees, right? Because here, right? His father, right? Vasudeva and Devaki, right, in their previous janmas, right, so as Prishni, they did a lot of austerities, right, and then they wanted Lord Krishna to be their son, right, and then so to fulfill those desires, right, he came in, and then so he came, and then he was doing all the pastimes with the gopas and gopis, right, and so he was enchanting the Rajabhumi, right? He was stealing the pots, right? Or say butter from the pots, right? Every day. So in whatsoever height they used to do. And then every day there was Leela, right? Nityam. So from morning onwards until night, so the whole Rajavasis were enjoying his pastime, right? And then he was fully engaged in one thing or the other. Among them, right? So in any stage, right? So the childhood uh, time or the pastimes are always remembered, yes, and then you relish. So in those thing, right, if you look in, right, so Nanda Maharaj was very fortunate, yeah, so to get that prema, right, say he could do. And then Yashoda Maya, she was chastising him, she was playing him, she was bathing him, right? So many things, right? So they were more fortunate actually to enjoy the pastimes of the Lord, right? So that's been mentioned here. Yeah. So he's very merciful. And then if you look at in other incarnations, right? So he appeared as Lord Rama, but he was a Maryada Purusha, right? So if somebody wants to abide by the rules and regulations, right? So that's Lord Ramchandra, right? But here, so Krishna's incarnation is the most munificent one, so where everyone could enjoy, right? So Lord Ramas was on royalty, and then truthfulness, right? So all those things we'll have to learn from Lord Rama, and mercy and all those things. But Krishna was came as a normal, his incarnation was as a normal Gopa, right? And then he did so many pastimes, so which we never get bored. Yeah, even reading 1,000 times. So the next verse is Nama Pankaja Nabhaya, Nama Pankaja Maline, Nama Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankajangrehe. So Nama, all respectful obeisances, Pankaja Nabhaya, unto the Lord who has a specific depression resembling a lotus flower in the center of his abdomen. Namaha, obeisances. Pankaja Maline, one who is always decorated with the garland of lotus flowers. Namaha, obeisances. Pankaja Netraya, one whose glance is as cooling as a lotus flower. Namaha, te, respectful obeisances unto you. Pankaja Angrihe, unto you the soles of whose feet are engraved with lotus flowers, and those who are therefore said to possess lotus feet. Okay. Translation: My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like in lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. So, if we look in, right, so here everything, right, uh, is actually described as lotus. Yeah, the reason is lotus is the most beautiful flower, right? So he is actually, so all the limbs, the body parts, and everything, right? So they are more beautiful than the lotus, right? So that's the reason it's been compared to the lotus. Yeah. So the Lord, right? So everything, right from his feet, right? So everything is much more beautiful than the lotus flower. So we don't have anything more beautiful than lotus. Hence, that's what the comparison has always been done. Yeah. So even when we look at, right, so whenever uh, we go to the temple also, right, so we should not actually directly go and see the Lord from the face. Yeah. So we should actually start from the feet. So we look from the feet, thighs, abdomen, and then shoulders, and then face. Yeah. So in that way, we'll have to see. And so that is how we'll have to see the Lord in any of the temple. Yeah. Okay. So now, Melina Mataji, you can read this.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Here are some of the specific symbolical marks on the spiritual body of the personality of Godhead, which distinguish his body from the bodies of all others. They are all special features of the body of the Lord. The Lord may appear as one of us, but he is always distinct by his specific bodily features. Srimati Kunti claims herself unfit to see the Lord because of her being a woman. This is claimed because women, Shudras, the liberal class, and the Dvija Bandhus, or the wretched descendants of the higher three classes, are unfit by intelligence to understand transcendental subject matter concerning the spiritual name, fame, attributes, form, etc., of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Such persons, although they are unfit to enter into the spiritual affairs of the Lord, can see him as the Archa Vigraha, who descends to the material world just to distribute favors to the fallen souls, including the above mentioned women, Shudras, and Dvija Bandhus. Because such fallen souls cannot see anything beyond matter, the Lord condescends to enter into each and every one of the innumerable universes as the Garbho Dakshai Vishnu, who grows a lotus stem from the lotus like depression in the center of his transcendental abdomen, and thus Brahma, the first living being in the universe, is born. Therefore, the Lord is known as the Pankajanabhi. The Pankajanabhi Lord accepts the Archa Vigraha, his transcendental form, in different elements, namely a form within the mind, a form made of wood, a form made of earth, a form made of metal, a form made of jewel, a form made of paint, a form drawn on sand, etc. All such forms of the Lord are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, and there should be a soothing atmosphere in the temple of worship to attract the burning attention of the non devotees, always engaged in material wranglings. The meditators worship a form within the mind. Therefore, the Lord is merciful even to the women, Shudras, and Dvija Bandhus, provided they agree to visit the temple of worship in different forms made for them. Such temple visitors are not idolaters, as alleged by some men with a poor fund of knowledge. All the great acharyas established such temples of worship in all places just to favor the less intelligent, and one should not pose himself as transcending the stage of temple worship while one is actually in the category of the Shudras and the women or less. One should again one should begin to see the Lord from his lotus feet, gradually rising to the thighs, waist, chest, and face. One should not try to look at the face of the Lord without being accustomed to seeing the lotus feet of the Lord. Srimati Kunti, because of her being the aunt of the Lord, did not begin to see the Lord from the lotus feet because the Lord might feel ashamed. And thus Kunti Devi, just to save a painful situation for the Lord, began to see the Lord just above his lotus feet, that is from the waist of the Lord, gradually rising to the face and then down to the lotus feet. In the round, everything there is in order. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So here, so that is how we just spoke, right? So the Lord, right? Even if we want to actually do any service or anything, right? So we can do in the form of Archa Vigraha, right? So he is present in the form of an so Archa Vigraha, right? So we should not consider those things as in wood or a stone, right? Because in those things, right, when the pure devotees do prana pratishtha, right, it is as good as the God is there. Yeah. So we should never look at from our material point of view, saying that this is a metal or this is a paper or this is small paint and all those things, right? So we should never do that. Yeah. And then, so these are all the things, right? So the Lord is merciful, and then He's giving us a chance for our us, right? So for the conditioned souls, right? So do this to do service, right? Because for us to do the seva, right, and to go to the transcendental abode, right? So we need to actually practice all those sadhana, right? And then that could be done through Archa Vigraha. And then we have that example also, right? So the in Bhagavad Gita, right? The post boxes example is being given, right? So wherein if there is a toy post box, right, which is not an unauthorized post box, right? So which is just a dummy one. If you post a letter there, right, it will never go to the recipient. Yeah. Similarly, if there is a post office which is actually from the government, yeah, right, and then if you put a letter there, right, so the letter goes to the recipient, right? So it is delivered to the recipient address. So in the same way, right, Archa Vigrahas are the medium. So which will help us to connect to the Lord, or so they are the authorized um, uh, things which we can worship. Yeah. So that's been told here, right? And then, as I said, right, even from the abdomen of the Lord, right? So a lotus stem came out, and from where the Lord Brahma was also born. Yeah. And then, so here, right? So we'll not go through the whole purpose. I'll just give you the overview of what it is. Yeah. So in this particular verse, right? So Queen Kunti says that. say you are more merciful than to me than Devaki, because Devaki was having her husband, right? So Vasudev was there. Vasudev was there, but in Kunti's case, right? So she was only with her children, right? So because Pandu Maharaj was not there, right? And then she was saying that whenever there were calamities or anything, right? So you are always there with us. Yeah, you are more protective than to Devaki, right? Because Devaki had Vasudev, right, with him. So and if you look in, right, the she was under the uh, she was imprisoned by Kamsa, right, her brother, and then he was actually merciless. He was about to kill Devaki also, right? But Vasudev said that she will whatever children are born, she will give you. So you have only threat with the children's, right? So we'll give the children's to you, but don't kill Devaki. And then they were actually giving away the children's, right? So they knew that the eighth child which is going to come, that is the Lord, right? So that's the reason. So they were giving away, and then the uh, Lord was very merciful to Kunti Maharani, because in every place, right? She again describes in what all places the Lord had was present, right? In all the episodes you look in, right? So wherever Pandavas had difficulty, the Lord came for the rescue. Yeah. So in the next verses, it will be the same thing. Yeah. So here also, right? So here, if you see, right, Vishan, so Vishan Magneha, right, Purusha Darshana, right? So here it says that Vishan, so when a poison was being administered to Bhimasena, right? So Duryodhana had hatched plots wherein the poison cake was given to to Bhima. So in that instance also Lord Krishna helped, right? And then there was, yeah, the lac house which was burned, right? So even that was Duryodhana's plan, right? So wherein he put the fire in their house, right? In there also they were rescued through a different path, right? So that also happened through Krishna only, right? And then the Purushadha, so the man eaters like Hidimbi and all, right? So they, even from them, so you helped us, right? And then the other things, right? And then and Asat Sabhaya, right? So this is Draupadi's case, right? So where she was about to insult, she was getting insulted, but they couldn't disrobe her because she was dependent on Lord Krishna, and then Lord Krishna invisibly become a sari, so which was never ending, right? And then in Vanavasa also, right? In when they were sent to Vanavasa also, right? So even there, right? So the kind to actually get the curse from Durvasa Muni, right? Even there was a plan which Duryodhana hatched, and then he sent Durvasa Muni. He redirected Durvasa Muni along with his disciples to Pandava at the time when they finished the food, yeah, and then they only had the Akshay Patra, which could actually give them food once in a day. And once you eat the food, right, so there'll be you cannot actually ask for more food. And then they had finished their lunch, and then there was only one grain which they offered to the Lord, and then that one grain actually filled all the tummies of Durvasa Muni and others. So in this way, right, there are so many instances where even at the end, right, even at the Maharatha, great generals, right, so in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, even there the Lord was present, right, and then who helped them to win the battle, right, and this Astra, Drauni Astra, right, so which was nothing but the weapon, right, Brahmastra, which was shot, and then which actually was saved, right? So all these things she remembers. Yeah. And then she says that, so this is very nice verse. Yeah. So she says that I wish that all those calamities would happen me again and again. Yeah. Vipada santuta shashvat tatra tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yad sayad apunar bhava darshanam. So she says that you gave me these calamities every time. So this should come every time. The reason is every time we have these calamities, right, we can see you, right? And then we can remember you. So if at all you are doing that, right? So you'll be relieved from you'll not have the next birth, right? So that's the reason she says that. So give us this pain, right? So let these pains be there, come to me again and again. Eh? So I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that there will be no longer see repeated births and deaths. Yeah? So if at all, so we don't have these things, right? See these vipadas, then we may not remember you, is what she's telling. Yeah? So give me more pain, is what she is saying. Yeah. So it's very difficult to tell these things, right? So it's very easy to read, but to realize these things and then tell, right? So it's only the exalted devotees. You see how exalted is Kunti Maharani, right? So with this verse, we can know it, right? So this is a gem of a verse, right? So wherein she says that let these calamities come more and more. Yeah. So less intelligent persons prepares plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place is itself full of calamities. Yeah. So we need not try to adjust. That's what is being said. Yeah. So we are in a wrong place. Yeah. And then she says that whom. So again he says that who cannot see the Lord. Yeah. So basically who have Janma Ishwarya Sruta Shribhir. Yeah. So like who have born in a high class family, who have opulences, right? Who have good education, and then who are beautiful, right? And then those people, right? So they cannot see the Lord, right? Because they are materially exhausted, right? So because they are fully have satisfied. If you look materially, right? So the person who is having a good birth in a family, like the family of Ambani, right? So somebody is born, right? So what for him, right? Everything is there, right? So by the time he's born, right? He's born with a golden spoon, right? So he doesn't see the hardship or anything, right? So for those persons, right? So remembering the Lord is very difficult unless he's a pious soul and then he has got some credit from his past janma, right? So if you look in it, there are how many are such uh, devotees we have who are from that kind of segment, right? There are, so it's not that we don't have. Even in Shastra also there are, and then even now also there are, but it is very rare to get those things. Yeah, and then who are very beautiful or who are highly educated, right? Because they are intoxicated with these things only, right? So because somebody has name, fame, right? So they for them, right, to understand the Lord is very difficult because they are so much carried away, right? So everywhere they go, right? So they dance in the Maya, right? So because they want their own this one, right? Prestige and all those things, right? So they can't have the seva bhava. To get them, the seva bhava is very difficult, right? So they would expect that everyone gives them a salam, right? Everyone stands up, everyone claps, right? So every time they'll be moving here and there to grab the attention, right? For them, it's very difficult. That's what she says, right? And then if you see in Shastrically, it was possible, right? So if you see Dhruva Maharaj and then Prahlad Maharaj, all this, right? Even Ambarish Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, all those were they had Janma Aishwaryas they had, but they left it, right? So when the time came, right, they just left it in one go, whatever they had, right? But this age, it's very difficult to find such exalted devotees, but there are few, right? So even we have got Henry Ford, right? So one of the that Prabhuji is a disciple of Prabhupada, right? So he does it, and then we had George Harrison, right? So even he was actually one of the person who had a lot of Janma Aishwarya, but he took up devotional service. Yeah. So my lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. Yeah, one who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty cannot approach. So they can, but these are uh, mostly like resistors. Yeah, so for one to take. Yeah, and then who can take up, right? So my obeisance unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverized. Yeah, so you have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are master of the monish. So here, right? So if you look in our lineage also, right? So like our Goswamis, right? So everyone was rich jamindars, or say they were ministers, right? So they were rich. They were having millions of gold coins at that time, right? But they left everything for the sake of the service, right? So that is what. So usually those who are deprived of this material things, right? So who have less attachment to this material thing, right? So they are the ones who can actually take up to the devotional service more easily. Yeah? So that's been told here. Yeah, I think we can stop here. So rest all you can read it. If there is anything, I'll tell you. So again, these things again, she'll tell you that so you're equal to everyone, right? And then she'll tell about the Janma Karma also. So why the Lord appears, right? So there is one more, yeah. So he actually comes in. So why does the Lord appear? Yeah. So this one. So the Lord appears, um, right? So of course it is bewildering, O souls of the universe, that you work, though you are inactive, and that you take birth, though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend among animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. So he descends as to protect the devotees, right? So he takes different incarnations, right? Some as animals, men, right, and sages, aquatics. So that's the thing that's been mentioned here, right? So with this, we'll stop in. Yeah. So because these are very long purports, so even if we read, it will not finish. So at the end, I had to cut short, and then I just gave the gist. But you all can go through this. Yeah. So this chapter is first canto, chapter 8. Yeah, Prabhujis and Matajis. So we'll end up for today's class with this. Anything you'd like to ask?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhu, so we were talking about how to see the devotees, and you might have seen most of the big temples, na? So we don't get to see the deities properly. It is kept some 10 meters away in a dark room, and so you can't even identify where is leg, where is hand. Only
Uh,
near the face you'll find some light. That you'll have to see directly the face only.
yeah. I understand, Prabhu. So where you're
Why don't they
coming.
show?
Eh?
Why don't they show the full deities?
Yeah, because the problem is these days, right, Prabhu, the temples have also become commercial, right? So I understand that, say, wherever these big temples are there, right, Prabhu? So we just get half a second, right? I understand that. And then by the time you reach there and then you open your
in some
eyes,
temples you will not see face only.
so they'll actually push you, saying that move, 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 right? Yeah. So those things we cannot do, but at least in ISKCON temples, you'll not find those problems, Prabhu. So you can go and watch the deities properly. Yeah. So
Correct.
that's the way we should actually look, right? Even if you look at the feet of the Lord, right? So Tulsi is also offered to the Lord. So we should actually give time. So that's the difference, right? If you look in, right? If you have been gone, if you have gone to any of the ISKCON temples also, right? So you'll see that there'll be few Prabhujis, right? Say like the brahmacharis or the sannyasis, right? They spend a lot of time in seeing the deities, right? So and then you'll feel you'll see like us, right? So we'll do a dandavat and then we'll see once. Maybe we'll see for a minute or so and then we'll disappear, right? So that's the difference. So they can visualize the Lord there, but for us, right? It's not, because we are still at sadhaka level, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, Prabhu, as you said, right? But that's Lord's darshan only. What we can do in that circumstance, right? So we can't do anything. So whatever darshan we get, right, we'll have to do. But one thing is, we should not close our eyes there. Eh? So you get half a second, we should utilize that half a second. So no, that happens, right? Most of the people, the tendency is that when they go to the Lord, right, in those places, they close their eyes. By the time they open, right, they are thrown out of that light. So there is no point. Yeah. So in those, whatever darshan we get, right? So
Yeah, you
that's
don't
fine.
get to see the feet only. So.
Yeah.
Mm.
Unless you have got good designations or and you are materially opulent, right? So there'll be a different line where they'll take and then they'll show you everything. Yeah. But yeah, so those cases, whatever darshan we get, right? So we pray to the Lord and then we move on. Yeah. But the only thing is, we should not close our eyes because we are getting a chance and then we should not miss it. Yeah. We might
Yeah,
have stood in the queue for hours, and when the time comes, if you close our eyes, it's gone. You miss that opportunity also.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll wind up, Mataji's and Prabhuji's. Vancha kalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namo. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your association.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.